My name is Esther Jung, and I was born in Seoul, Korea on December 23rd, 1996. So I am 23 years old. When I was 2 years old, my parents decided to immigrate to the States. So I lived in San Francisco for a little bit, and then we moved down more south to Los Angeles. I lived in a suburb community called Arcadia, and I have an older sister and like two wonderful parents. And I lived there most of my life until my parents decided to actually move suddenly to Arizona when I was in second grade. Growing up in Arcadia, everyone looked like me, but then when I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, no one looked like me. And it's crazy because I think people underestimate your memories or your experiences as a child, but when I was 7, I remember going to class. And even throughout the months, I became very much aware and conscious of my features. And I think that's kind of a sensitive topic for a lot of women or Korean American women or Korean. I became very aware of my nose and my eyes and my skin tone and my hair. And I have a specific memory. I remember it was picture day in 3rd grade, and my parents dressed me up in the best dress I had from Old Navy, and I went into picture day. I was in line with all the other students, and for some reason I started looking at all of my peers and their eye size, and I was like, whoa, everyone's eyes are the size of a quarter. And for me, I was just thinking, I was like, I wonder how big my eyes are, because that was a comment that I frequently was asked. And I remember coming home that day and I took a physical quarter and I compared it with my eye and I switched it. And so it was just the coin was facing downwards and I compared it, and I was just for me, that was wow, I am very different. I think living in Arizona kind of exposed just the reality that not everyone looks like me. And I recognized that Arcadia was a bubble, or Southern California is a bubble. For me, I realized I definitely need to take ownership of my identity. I felt that when I was in 4th or 5th grade, where I feel I know I'm different, but I want to be okay with that. I don't want to feel I need to feel ashamed or guilty, and I want to be proud of my roots, because my dad would always say you're Korean first and then you're American. That's why people say Korean American. And I was like, okay, sure. But I never wanted to feel embarrassed about being Korean. And I think from then on, in high school and when I went to college, I definitely kind of struggled with that. I confronted, I guess, my Korean American identity again when I studied abroad in Kenya. The reason why I moved to DC was because I wanted to come out of the Asian bubble, and that was really great. And I feel oh wow, I'm growing and almost experiencing all these different things, and I wanted to step out of something completely out of my comfort zone and study abroad in Kenya. And I definitely felt so vulnerable and raw about my Asianness and my Koreanness, because that's the first thing that people pick up on. I think when I went to study abroad, I realized that no matter where you grew up or what ethnicity or nationality you are, everyone struggles with the same thing. Everyone wants to feel accepted and loved, and just kind of want to pursue success and achievement, and family's always important, food's also really important. When I really got to experience other parts of the world, or even in DC, where a lot of women and children are not afforded the same opportunity, I definitely feel for them. I really want to empower women and children to kind of find their own passion, whatever it may be. When I was in Kenya, I met a lot of really strong women who started off their own business, or they were educated when their families told them they couldn't, and just kind of pioneering their own life. If I can, I want to be in an organization and work for a company that provides that same opportunity for people. So my parents in Korea, they actually were both in the banking industry. And so my mom kind of worked with more of the international accounts, I guess, and my dad worked for more the domestic accounts. But when the IMF crisis hit in '97 in Korea, that definitely affected their work. That's when my parents thought seriously, like, we have to get out of Korea. I think for my parents, working in the banking industry and then coming to the States was definitely a huge adjustment, because like a lot of immigrant parents, I think they take on a lot of odd jobs to pay off the bills. And so like my parents worked at supermarkets at one point, the post office, or like Korean-owned like fashion stores. We had cleaners at one point. Yeah, so yeah, I remember growing up early in the morning, my parents would wake me up and they'll take me to the cleaners like before I went to school. So for a while, I think my dad was actually dealing with a lot of unemployment. It wasn't a very consistent, like he wasn't consistently working, and so my mom had to take on all of the roles. And she's a very small, petite woman, and so I think when I think about my mom, she definitely is very resilient, and she embodies a lot of characteristics that I value. My mom is like everything that I hope I can be. I know I can't be as great as my mom, but that's always something me and my sister talk about. And I think, especially the Korean word like 엄마, I think it encompasses so many like meanings, and I think a lot of people can relate on that, especially if they grew up in an immigrant, household. Just the level of just resilience and just perseverance that mothers kind of take on. And it's crazy. I think it's kind of funny, but kind of like, whoa, when like my mom used to sometimes say like, when I became a mother, I'm not a woman, I'm a mother, and that comes first. And I think that statement kind of rings in a lot of different ways in my life. And so I'm really grateful for my parents, and they're not perfect people. No one's perfect, but as just individuals and as people, I really respect my parents. My dad says this a lot. It's like, oh, like we moved to the States together and we're gonna go through everything together. And I think that was true, because I remember a group of friends like a year ago, they asked me to kind of share my testimony. And so when I did, I didn't realize how much of like family was such a big part of my life. And they were like, wow, like when you guys go through things, or Esther, when you go through something, it seems like your mom, your dad, and your sister go through the same struggles as you. And I didn't realize that until they pointed it out. And so even with our immigration story, or like moving to Arizona, or even when I moved to DC for college, like our family almost like went through it all together. So I am really grateful that like my immigrant story, my Korean American story is not just like an individual experience, but like I definitely could not have done it without my parents and my sister. My name is Esther Jung, and this is my Korean American story.